Welcome back to the Wise Chronicles. We often think of thieves as masked strangers, but the most dangerous thieves don't break your windows. They sit at your dinner table, smile at your children, and use your love as a weapon to drain your life dry. Today's story is a chilling, infuriating, and ultimately triumphant account of a mother who discovered the ultimate financial betrayal and orchestrated a masterful trap to expose a greedy daughter-in-law. If you believe that those who prey on the elderly deserve the harshest karma imaginable, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss the incredible, true stories we share here on the Wise Chronicles. Now, let's go back to the moment I uncovered the devastating truth about Clara. To understand this betrayal, you have to understand our family. After my husband passed, I was left with a very small income. I lived modestly, relying on my faith and my small garden. My son David, however, was a brilliant entrepreneur. When he met Clara, I was just happy to see him in love. Clara was stunning, polished, and always seemed to look down on my humble home. I tried my best to bond with her, but she always treated me like an annoying charity case. When David's company really took off, he promised I'd never have to worry about money again. He was busy traveling, so he set up a generous monthly allowance of $5,000. He told me he was putting Clara in charge of hand-delivering the checks, so I would not have to deal with the paperwork. I was overwhelmed with gratitude, but the first month passed, and Clara never showed up. She smoothly lied, saying the funds were delayed. The second month passed, then the third. Soon, 8 months had gone by. I was too ashamed to call David and complain. I assumed the business had hit a rough patch, so I stayed silent. I turned the thermostat down to 50 degrees to save money. I stood in line at the church food pantry so I could eat. Until that phone call. "Are you enjoying the $5,000? David asked, his voice full of love. I sat in the cold, staring at my spilled soup. Every instinct screamed at me to tell David right then and there that his wife was a monster. But I stopped myself. I realized if I accused Clara without hard proof, she would spin it. She would cry and tell David I was getting old, that my memory was failing. She was a master manipulator. I needed undeniable, catastrophic evidence. So I took a deep breath, steadied my voice, and lied to my son. "Yes, David," I said smoothly. "The money is wonderful. Thank you so much." The next morning, I put on my best dress, took the bus across town, and walked straight into the headquarters of David's company. I didn't ask to see my son. I asked to see Marcus, the chief accountant. He was a meticulous, fiercely loyal man who had always treated me with respect. When I sat down in his office and quietly explained my situation, the blood drained from his face. He locked his door, pulled down the blinds, and opened the corporate ledgers. What we found over the next 3 hours was a financial massacre. Clara hadn't just forgotten to give me the money. She had forged my signature to open a shadow account in my name, an account only she had the debit card for. For 8 months, the $5,000 allowance was automatically deposited into that account. And every single month, Clara drained it. The bank statements showed where my survival money had gone. $500 champagne brunches, thousands of dollars at luxury day spas, designer shoes, and expensive jewelry. She was literally wearing the money meant to fix my heating system, but her greed didn't stop there. Marcus dug deeper. On the company credit card, Clara had racked up nearly $48,000 in unauthorized, purely personal luxury purchases. First-class flights for her friends, lavish hotel suites, and high-end shopping sprees. She was bleeding my son's company dry, right under his nose. Marcus was shaking with rage. "Margaret, I have to go to David with this right now. This is grand theft." "No," I said, placing my hand over the statements. "If you take this to him, he will panic. He might try to protect her. I want to look her in the eyes when she falls. Give me copies of everything. I am going to host a dinner party." I spent the next 3 days preparing. I invited David and Clara over, claiming I wanted to thank them for their generosity. I cleaned my small house from top to bottom. I wore my worn-out sweater. I wanted Clara to see the poverty she was forcing me into. I also called Marcus, asking him to arrive at my house at exactly 7:30. When Friday evening arrived, David walked in with flowers, pulling me into a massive hug. Clara followed, looking out of place in my modest living room. She wore a stunning cashmere coat, and over her arm was a handbag that I knew cost exactly $4,000. It was bought with my grocery money. We sat down at the table. David was in high spirits. Clara picked at her food, eager to leave. I poured a glass of water, looked directly at Clara, and set my trap. "So, Clara," I began, my voice sweet. "David tells me you've been busy. Have you been working on any new charity projects?" She offered a fake bright smile. "Oh yes, Margaret. Organizing galas, helping the less fortunate. Giving back is so important to me." "It really is," I agreed. I turned to my son. "David, thank you again for the monthly allowance. You have no idea how much it helps." David beamed, squeezing his wife's hand. "Don't thank me, Mum. Thank Clara. She's the one who personally manages the account. She's an angel." I looked back at Clara. Her smile faltered. "It's my pleasure, Margaret. Family takes care of family." "Yes," I said softly, locking my eyes onto hers. "Family takes care of family." Which is why I was wondering, Clara, how exactly did my allowance pay for a $3,000 weekend at the Golden Orchid Spa last month? The room went completely silent. David stopped chewing. "Mum, what are you talking about?" Clara let out a nervous laugh. "Margaret, I think your age is catching up with you. You're confused." Right on cue, the doorbell rang. "That will be Marcus," I said, standing up. I asked him to join us for dessert. When I opened the door, Marcus walked in holding a thick red folder. He walked straight into the dining room and placed the folder in front of David. "David," Marcus said, his voice laced with steel. "Your mother came to see me on Tuesday. I've conducted a forensic audit. You need to look at these documents immediately." Clara's face turned the color of ash. She stood up so fast her chair crashed to the floor. David, don't look at that. This is a setup. Your mother has always hated me. But David was already opening the folder. He saw the forged signatures. He saw the shadow account. He saw the $48,000 in fraudulent charges. And he saw the dates Clara had withdrawn the $5,000 allowance, corresponding perfectly with receipts from luxury boutiques. I watched my son's heart break. He looked up, his hands trembling. He looked around my freezing, drafty house. He looked at my worn-out sweater, and then he looked at the $4,000 handbag sitting on the chair. "You let my mother freeze," David whispered, his voice cracking with devastation. "I trusted you to take care of her, and you let her stand in line at a food pantry so you could buy designer shoes." Clara started sobbing. "David, please, it was an addiction. I was going to pay it back." "Get your hands off me," David roared. "Get out of my mother's house. Get out of my life. I am calling the lawyers tonight." Clara ran out, crying hysterically. David collapsed into his chair, weeping. I walked over, wrapped my arms around his shoulders, and held my boy. But the story didn't end there. I was not going to let Clara walk away. The next week, armed with the evidence, I filed criminal charges against her for elder financial exploitation and forgery. Clara's wealthy parents tried to intimidate me, offering to pay double what she stole if I kept it quiet. But I looked their lawyers in the eye and told them that justice was not for sale. The trial was brief and public. The judge told Clara that preying on a vulnerable elderly widow was one of the most despicable acts she had ever seen. Clara was found guilty. She was ordered to repay the $40,000 plus massive fines. The public exposure destroyed her reputation. David followed through with a ruthless divorce, ensuring she walked away with nothing but a criminal record. When the court forced Clara to return the $40,000, I looked at the check. It was more money than I had seen in a decade. But I couldn't just spend it. I knew what it felt like to be elderly, vulnerable, and betrayed. I knew there were thousands of others out there in the same position. So I took every penny and established a non-profit. I called it the Grace Hands Foundation. Our mission is to provide free legal representation and emergency financial support to elderly individuals facing financial exploitation by their own family members. We partnered with local law firms and accountants like Marcus. We ran hotlines. We helped terrified seniors recover stolen assets and put abusive relatives behind bars. David, initially consumed by guilt, eventually found his way back. He started coming to the foundation, using his business connections to secure massive donations. He sat with elderly victims, helping them navigate the complex legal paperwork to reclaim their homes and their dignity. In helping others, my son found his own healing. 2 years after I sat shivering in my living room, I was on a stage in Austin. The governor was placing a trophy into my hands. I had been named the Texas Woman of the Year for the incredible work of the Grace Hands Foundation. I looked into the audience, and in the front row, cheering louder than anyone, was my son, David. Betrayal is a poison that can destroy you if you let it. But if you have the courage to demand the truth, you can turn that poison into a cure. Clara tried to break me, but all she did was give me the power to save countless others. Never underestimate a woman who has nothing left to lose. What would you have done? Confronted her immediately or set a trap like I did? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If this story of justice gave you chills, please hit that like button and share this video. And make sure you are subscribed to the Wise Chronicles for more incredible, true stories of survival and fighting back. Thank you for listening. Always protect your peace, and I will see you in the next one.